Am I supposed to stand somewhere? Here? Most people stand here. Up close and personal. Well, first of all, I have to say good morning, and I really appreciate everybody selling out this fantastic gathering today. It's an honor to be able to speak in front of my fellow creatives and fellow Cincinnatians and those that are truly passionate about walking in the rain and the cold weather that we continue to have. I just want to get a couple things out of the way before I start talking, just to kind of get things out there. This is a tarantula. If your eyes do wander, I have no problem with that. It is meant to be up close and personal. Second thing is, I do in fact live in Cincinnati. For some reason, nobody believes me, and I guarantee you, after this conversation, somebody will ask me, so how long are you in town for? Are you staying at the hotel? I'm like, no, let me tell you something, okay? I live in the city of Cincinnati. I love this city. And I get tired of people when I walk through the airport and they ask me, why are you living in Cincinnati? And I tell them, I said, well, number one, we don't have really that much traffic. You can pretty much own a house. And the most important thing is that this city is truly based and built and stands upon the power of relationships. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to go to many other coastal cities and find the purity of that relationship that we all have with one another. Now, I do have to apologize to some of my friends because as friends and as our relationship, I should have picked you up on the way when I saw you guys walking down the street because it was raining and they had that hunched over like this, you know. Don't want to get the front of your shirt wet. You don't remember about the hair. But I had already passed, so I apologize. Don't get upset. But yeah, again, I appreciate that. So I just want you guys to close your eyes. Yes, you too, miss. Don't worry. I won't mess with your hair. I won't pull your name tag off. I want you guys to just stare into the back of your eyelids. Yell out some of the things you see. Yell out some more things.
My daughter.
Now I want you, while you continue to stare into the back of your eyelids, I want you to think about your family. And now I want you guys to yell out, what do you see?
Love, family, mom.
Smile. Hug.
Now I want you to add time to the equation. Time spent with your family. And I want you to yell out the things that you see. And now I want you to add purpose to the back of your eyelids with time and with family and with the freedom of thought. And now yell out, what do you see?
Growing great grandmothers.
Love. Conversation. Being present.
Comfort.
And now I want you to put up a big fence that you can't see through with all that around you, and it blocks you from that. Now what do you see? Now I want you to add a layer of chain link fence to that. Now what do you see? Bricks. I want you to add bricks. Now what do you see?
Hardcore challenge. Tagging.
Layers.
Berlin walls.
Open your eyes. Freedom is the greatest liberty we have. And as creatives, that's the only empowerment that we should depend upon. Because within the walls of all these structures and with all the work that we do, freedom is what allows us to think outside the box. Freedom is what empowers us to be more than the next person. Freedom is what allows us to get through to the people we're trying to reach. See, I'm a Montessori kid. Anybody else Montessori? That's what I'm talking about. Montessori education teaches you one thing. There's nothing you can't do. Montessori also teaches you there's no question you can't ask. And what Montessori doesn't teach you is the fact that you're going to get in a lot of trouble because you're going to ask all the questions and you're going to challenge all the authorities of all the people that you ever run into. You see, I didn't even know that. When I played in the National Football League for 11 years, I got in so much trouble with my coaches that I'm surprised I even played that long. I can remember when I was in New York, Tom Oliver, he only allowed me one question in the meeting. One, because he said I occupied too much time. So what did I do? I bought a book, and I filled that book with questions, and I gave it to him at the end of the meeting. I said, it's your responsibility to answer my questions since I wasn't able to ask the questions in the meeting. You know what happened the next meeting? I was able to ask those same questions. Why? Because he didn't want to do that homework. Think outside the box. And so as I've been able to move throughout the different places that I've been, I've taken that level of that Montessori education and I've applied it to all the things that I've essentially done. When I was in Philadelphia, there was a time when I was working with my trainer and he said to me, he said, look, sometimes you have to kind of step onto your own island and you have to think your own way. And sometimes people may not find their way onto your island. And some people might look at you differently, but eventually some might join if they understand your purpose. And if they understand the reason why. And I suppose that was my creative way of playing the game of football. Unfortunately, sometimes with that freedom and that creativity comes consequences. And I got released from the team. But it's okay, because that was my choice. And then as that road continued to turn and as that game continued to play with that Montessori education and that sense of freedom and that love of creativity, I ended up down in New Orleans playing for the New Orleans Saints. And see, they didn't like my creativity. They didn't like my sense of freedom. And so the consequence was that I ended up only being there for about 2.5 weeks. But it's amazing how even with that situation playing exactly on the field right over there, that we got to practice with the Bengals. And sure, Kenny Chesney showed up because he thinks he's a football player. Corey Smith says he wears eyeliner, and that's his prerogative. Maybe it helps him see better on the stage. And for those of you who love Corey Smith and country music, you know what I'm talking about. But it was that day that I caught the eye and developed a relationship with Marvin Lewis. And while I got released by the New Orleans Saints, I had an opportunity to come here. And so the way that I've always approached life is that freedom of thought and that creativity that I was taught in my Montessori education and how I've been able to translate that through the different teams that I played eventually allowed me to end up exactly where I am today. And if you break down and wipe away all those words on that whiteboard that we spend so much time with every day of our lives, it all comes down to purpose. You see, when I got into the National Football League, I truly believed that my sole purpose was to leverage the flexibility, it's kind of a cliche, of the game as a springboard to move to the next world and to the next opportunity. To be appreciative of all the conversations and all the people and all the relationships developed in order to go to the next opportunity. But most importantly, something near and dear to my heart, to change these negative perceptions that were placed upon those people that played the game. That was my purpose. So every day while I was out there and I was asking the questions, I was doing it, well, because I wanted answers, but because most of the time, people who play the game don't ask questions. And I was out there creatively making plays with my guitar. Because, well, most people are throwing up signs and I'm just playing music. And I was out there moving into the world of television and moving into the world of business because I didn't want to be a statistic. That was my purpose. So I'd ask you, as you continue to think about while your eyes were closed, what's your purpose? Because in the end, if you don't have purpose, you really don't have freedom. One of my good friends at the great University of Michigan, go Blue, and if anybody talks about that other whack school up north, we got problems. And I purposely didn't stand back there just so I could look at you. So anybody, go ahead, anybody. I know somebody wants to say something. Go ahead. Come on. No? Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah, there's a chair coming over your head in 2 seconds. But a good friend of mine, a guy named Dr. Vic Strecker, maybe some of you know a company called Health Sciences that he found, Health Media, sorry. And I spent a lot of time talking to him, and I happened upon calling him one day, and we were talking about purpose, and he wanted to tell me a story. So I wanted to tell you his story because I think it's a powerful one. It's very concise, but motivating one for, I think, for me, for a lot of people, and why purpose is important. Vic Strecker, PhD, MS, social work, public health, all the titles that anybody could want. JD, PhD, across the board. Founded an amazing company, $300 million business, which he sold to Johnson & Johnson, of which one day, for him, truly really meant nothing. You see, Dr. Vic Strecker had a daughter. And his daughter is an amazing woman, creative woman, worked in the fashion industry in New York City. I believe she spent some time with the likes of Donna Karan and Anna Wintour and all the rest of the high fashion icons of which exist in that town. And the only thing that held her back was the fact that she had a heart condition. And see, Vic knew that. And from the time that she was a little girl, they knew that at any moment in time, anything could happen with her. And so what did they do? They let her live the most full life at all. Full life as possible. And so when they would go on vacation, they would they would sleep in the standard room, and they would give her the penthouse suite. They would give her first class, and they would sit and coach. They would let her eat anything that she wanted. He even let her boyfriend come on trips. And he committed his life not only to his company, but to his family and to making sure that his daughter had the most fulfilling life possible. Because he knew that fateful day would come, and it did, that she passed, 20 years old. No parent should outlive their child. And so, even through everything that he was able to give her, and even through the success of his company, he started to crumble. Everything fell apart. All the different levels of abuse started to set in. The depression became too much to bear. Class, he didn't really want to teach anymore. Company, who cares? Family, disheveled. But one day, he was sleeping, and during this dream, he was in a kayak of which he paddled out to the water. And in that dream, the sun was just coming up over Lake Michigan, and he was paddling out, and there was another kayak that showed up, and there was his daughter in his dream. And she took him by the hand, and they went on this journey. And she showed him all the amazing places that they had been, and she showed him all the amazing things that she had seen, and she showed him how wonderful her life still continues to be. When he woke up from that dream, it came to him that, sure, his daughter had passed, but she was in a better place, and that what he would love to be able to do is, most importantly, reorient his purpose, because for so long, the purpose was to keep her alive, and even though she had passed, he needs to still continue to tell her story and to continue her purpose through his life. And so as I was talking to him, he told me about this book that he started to write, and he started talking about these different ideals that he put in place, and he came up with this space, which has to do with sleep, presence, activity, creativity, and eating. And he developed this amazing platform, this amazing app that basically says that if all those such items are aligned and they are closely connected to your purpose, then you as a person could be that much more whole. Even to the point that, scientifically speaking, if you find your purpose, your brain actually continues to function at an even higher level, and your neurosynaptic fibers continue to fire at that much greater of a rate, and you have less opportunity, less chance of falling to the likes of depression and to the likes of Alzheimer's and all the rest of the unfortunate things that happen to those that lose their way. And so obviously from his standpoint, He's a teacher. And he developed this, and he passed this methodology and this thought process on to me. And he's passing it on to other people. And I'd hope that you pass it on to others, because I think it's true that whether it's the game of football that you're playing for the people that you're supporting or the stereotypes that you're trying to crush, or for the family member that you're trying to continue their life, or the work that you're trying to do in the daily doldrums of sitting in the office, if you have no purpose, you're not building anything. You're essentially spiraling out of control. There's a girl I was dating when I was 27, and she said that all men spin out of control when they're 27. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I think it's definitely true. I mean, I'm 36 now and I'm still spinning. Maybe it's just men, we spin. But I think it really comes down to, what is your purpose? What is that glue that holds you together, and what allows you to wake up early in the morning and come into the office and put forth new and inspiring ideas? What is the freedom that you allow yourself to identify that purpose so that you can move forward and develop and collaborate with others to inspire the world to be a part of the brands and the people that you work with every day? One of the people that I work with every day taught me how to tie this bow tie, and I think that's the last item that I have to make sure I tell you. I did tie this myself. And for those of you who don't believe me, challenge me any day. I've been a part of bow tie tie-offs for a long time, and I tie them quite quickly. But my friend that I spent a lot of time with, a guy named Kunta Littlejohn, he taught me how to tie the bow tie, and he said, if you want to be somebody, you got to rock a bow tie. And I don't know if some of you know the story of my friend, but he was this guy, 360 pounds, walking around, laughing, joking, eating lollipops, ice cream cones, doesn't care because he hates working out. But that's all right, because he loves life. And he laughs at all my jokes, so he's definitely in my life. But one day I went to go see him, and he wasn't 330 pounds. He was like 130 pounds. I'm like, man, what happened to my friend? Are you trying to be a supermodel or something like that? And he told me he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it kind of hit me. I mean, this is the guy that made sure that I got up when I was spending too much time on the ground worrying about my knee when I tore my ACL my first year in the National Football League. He was the same guy that called me and said, how come you haven't gotten back on the field? And why are you not starting yet? He's the same guy that said to me, it's all right that you guys lost the Super Bowl. You're going to get back. Same guy that also told me that, look, one team might cut you, another one's going to pick you up, and you're going to be all right. But you got to keep rocking that bow tie. And I still looked at him like he was crazy. Because back then, and I did say that back then, so I'm dating myself, because that was 2000. Nobody was wearing bow ties. People with bow ties, and they're like, you know what? You guys are still those pen protector wearing, shirt, pen, stains, physics teachers that I don't want to talk about, computer science programmers that I don't want to hang out with. Yeah, now everybody wants to be a computer science. Yeah, now everybody wants to come up with the next program to make $1 billion and be the CEO of your own company. Mm-hmm. Bow ties brought it back. And so when I found out that he had cancer, I immediately went to go put on a bow tie, and I've been wearing them ever since. And so one day we were having the conversation, and I knew the bow ties weren't about me, but it was about his conversation, and it was about his story. And so that's why we started Bow Tie Cause, to help amplify and help other people truly be able to talk about their cause, but most importantly, their purpose. I think when you whittle it down, whether you're playing the game, as I told you before, to crush stereotypes, or whether you're building companies and building apps, and building ways for people to really align their sense of purpose with what they're doing in life, or whether you're wearing bow ties to support your friends and family and those that love you very dearly, it all comes down to purpose. And that's truly the greatest freedom that you do have. Because once you stand firm on purpose, you can run a marathon. You can drive any car, you can go anywhere. You could swim as long as you want. You could sit and you can talk because you know that you're directionally oriented to something that's greater than yourself. And that's the most important thing in anyone's life. Because we are all here but a short bit of time, as they say. But what are we going to leave behind? Yeah, it's our creative work. But what's the story behind the work? What is the ideal per Jim Stengel? What's your ethos? Why do you do it? Why would someone want to be a part of seeing the things that you do? Let that purpose and the freedom of that thought emanate through the work that you do. That will make the work great. And most importantly, that'll make Cincinnati great. Because that's what people love. That's what people want to see. That's our responsibility as a collective to let that purpose and let that energy be that bright light in this dismal day so they can evaporate the raindrops, create that nice steam, that fog, that energy, that effect that people remember. That's our responsibility, and we have a great chance to build all of which we believe in and to stand firm upon it. Because the city wants us to do that. The city needs us to do that. And I believe that all of you want to do that. So, my friend Kunta is back up to his 330 pounds. And I took him to go work out. As soon as the workout was done, we went right to UDF. And he said, "Don't ever bring me to that workout ever again." You know why, he said? He said, "That's not my purpose." But I love him dearly. And he truly gave me something solid to stand upon. And so I hope I've passed something on to you to firmly stand upon and really start to drill down and think about what's your purpose. So, thank you. So I know that maybe there's some questions, maybe there's some challenges, maybe there's some, things people have to get off their chest about the school that they wish they never went to. Maybe people want to know if I actually live here. They want to check my driver's license, In the back.
I belong to an online community of widows and widowers, and I absolutely see what you're talking about with your colleague that you talked about that had lost his daughter. Like that people really lose their purpose in the face of gigantic loss. And most of the widows and widowers, they're young, like under 30.
Mm.
And so it's, very unexpected and tragic. And I just wondered, I love what you talked about with that space analogy.
Yep.
And I just wondered, what do you see as I don't know, it's so hard to get people to kind of look outside of that grief and look outside of losing that whole purpose of growing old with their spouse. Can you give any tips or suggestions on kind of how to spur somebody into finding a new purpose in life at that point? And
Yeah, so it's a book that he wrote, and it's called On Purpose, for all of you note takers. It's a really amazing book. It's called On Purpose, and the app is called the On Purpose app, or the Dung Beetle app. Yeah, if you look it up, I can find it for you.
It's about finding.
Yeah, so essentially, and I want to answer both your questions. So the first question about purpose and unfortunate situations that families and hardships, I think it's really about spending time. I think that's one of the most important things. Oftentimes when people grieve, they don't want to spend time talking about the grief that they have. You want to run so fast away from it that it becomes a distant memory, but at the same time a ball and chain that drags on for your entire lifetime. Instead of confronting it, spending time and really being able to identify and be able to talk through and remember, so that it becomes a part of your life instead of a distant memory. I think that's one of the most important things. And then you can really start to move towards what's your next purpose? Or why does your purpose have to be separate from that of which has been in the past? Why can't it be a part of? So that's the first question. Second question, as I said before, the book is called On Purpose. And it's Dung Beetle app. I don't know, maybe someone can look it up right now, but it's sleep, presence, activity, creativity, and eating. And what you do on this app is you find you're basically your 5 core roots. This is what you stand on, boom. As a person, your 5 core roots. And what happens is in the app, you move your tree you move your tree closer and closer to those roots depending upon your day. Okay? And depending upon how you move or how much sleep you get and how much you feel you're present and how much you eat and how much you're active, over a certain amount of time you can start to see the metrics of those aspects as they relate to you and your purpose. So the goal is to be able to measure the things that you're doing in order to make sure that you're aligned with your purpose. In other words, if you find that when you eat Krispy Kreme donuts, you're close to your purpose, and that happens over a long time, maybe you need to stick with those Krispy Kremes. But, and then you feel as though you have to be highly active. So you know how to get yourself into your own routine in order to stay aligned with that purpose, because that's the tree. You want to try to find the most times when your tree is more closely connected to your roots and the elements of space and how those relate. So that's essentially the On Purpose app. Yep.
Real quickly, have you ever thought about your purpose going into the medical field? I mean, I know at one time, pediatric surgery was something you wanted.
So I was supposed to be a physician. I don't want to let you know, but I was supposed to be McDreamy. Yeah, serious. No, I really wanted to be a pediatric neuroplastic surgeon when I was younger. And for those who don't know what that means, I just wanted to be a doctor with a lot of titles. But the real reason I wanted to be a pediatric neuroplastic surgeon was because of the fact that I really wanted to be an artist. And coincidentally, this year I will be participating in Photo Focus. I'm not sure if many of you know about that. But I will be one of the featured artists in Photo Focus. So if any production managers out there who want to do a freelance project with me and not get paid, but have a good time, please reach out, because I'm looking for a cool team. So I'm completely open to that. Maybe some videographers that have some free time, so just throwing it out there. Shameless plugs. I got a couple other ones later. But I really wanted to be an artist. But I knew from my many trips to Benihana's of Tokyo, that's really what the name is. It's not Benihana's, it's Benihana's of Tokyo. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, do you? The hibachi grill? Okay, the choo-choo train with the onion rings, and they move it along, the spinning egg and throw it up and they crack it, the shrimp, catch it in the hat, in the pocket. Are you serious right now? Oh my gosh. So every time I would go to Benihana's of Tokyo, I would always have the steak and lobster. So I was like, I can't be an artist and eat that. It's not gonna work. I'm gonna starve because I'm not gonna be having enough food. because I was under the impression that most artists don't really make that much money until they pass on. So it's great to be like a descendant of a great artist, you know? Warhol was my dad. That's great. His paintings just sold for $30 million. That definitely is true. His self-portraits just sold for $30 million. If you guys don't know about that. Was it 50? Who said 50? It was 30, right? Yeah. Thank you. So I decided to kind of redirect myself because I knew that I wanted to eat steak and lobster at Benihana's of Tokyo, but I wanted to be an artist, so I had to find the best profession that would afford me the capital in order to do so. Fortunately, you know, I kind of went another route, and I played an amazing game that afforded me amazing opportunities, but also the free time to do my art. So while I didn't cross over into the world of medicine, I still kind of think that way at times, mainly because my mother's a physician. And while she was studying, I think when I was younger, like 1 through like 5, she would keep me up, and I guess I would hear that. So sometimes I think that I'm a doctor. So I probably won't go back because I don't want to be like that guy in House that always argues with House that was really old that needs to go get another job instead of being a physician. Because I'm that Montessori kid that's going to challenge the authority. So I'm going to concentrate on my art. And I hope everybody shows up to Photo Focus this year. I'm going to be showing at the Miller Gallery. So hopefully that answers your question. Another shameless plug I'm putting out there is everybody got their pen out? Okay, so I'm throwing a polo event, all right? That'll be on the 16th of August. It's called The Galloping Pig. TheGallopingPig.com, okay? Cincinnati has one of the best car shows, has the most amount of art per capita than anywhere else in the country, most giving per capita than almost anywhere else in the country. It was just at the JDRF event and they raised $1 million. You know, we don't want to compare ourselves, we can't compare in terms of New York City because an apartment in New York City goes for like $30 million and it's on like 9 bedrooms, and that same house in Cincinnati costs you like $500,000. So, you know, you see the disparity between the two. So where we raised $1 million, they raised $61 million. So it's okay. We're okay. You get it? So if anybody wants to come out to the Galloping Pig, thegallopingpig.com. Just throwing out, I'll be throwing out little buzz things out there. Yes? Oh, yeah.
Dungbeetle.org.
Dung, yeah, Dung, D-U-N-G, beetle.org. So you guys should check that out. Yes?
I would just say thank you twice. The first one is you taught me how to tie my bow tie. Thank you, YouTube. And
That's the NPR bow tie.
yeah, it is. And so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And number 2 is I'm a teacher, and there are things that I teach because other people need to take it, and that they take it because they need to take it. And then there are things that I teach because I want to take it, or want to teach it, and they want to take it. And I teach a class called Design for Social Change, and you're one of the topics, and so thank you for that as well.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate all of the bow ties that everybody created. It's a very nice bow tie. I feel like we should have done a competition. Where's the MD for possible? No, someone? No? No? Where are they? Bow tie competition that I think Possible should create for the cause that we collectively support. Yeah.
How would you base your experience on your TV show when you travel around the world, and would you ever do that again?
Oh, I would definitely do that again. Travel for free? Man. Travel for free and get to eat boiled goat's head? That's amazing. Get beat up in places like Cambodia where you don't want to go into the hospital. Play rugby. Yeah, you know, going to places where you can't breathe. Yeah, so traveling has always been a part of my lifestyle. Both my parents were in the military, so we kind of made our way around the world, and I continue to do so. And I think that afforded me sort of a global perspective. And I think that definitely filters into my own personal ideals as well as ethos about sort of the globalization of our economy and how we how we share and how we look and how we act towards one another. And that filters into everything that I do. So I think that traveling affected me on a lot on a mental, physical, social, spiritual, all the levels, if you will. And I would say to all of you, if you haven't traveled outside of this here city, it's Queen City, there's an airport that can take you to France. Just take a break and go. The countries that I went to, from Switzerland to Singapore to Spain, Cambodia, I was in Poland for a little bit. Where's it?
Nepal.
Yeah, Nepal. I mean, I think all of it set the stage for sort of an open-mindedness. I think that also plays into the thought process of freedom, being able to allow yourself to think like other people and not think that you have to think like only the people that are around you, because we're not just 150 people, we're a whole universe of thought. So allow your mind to kind of ebb and flow, and I think when you travel, you can definitely find those that you liken yourself to. Someone asked me the other day about religion, and religion is a perplexing conversation when you travel to so many different places. What would you be if you lived in Egypt? Who would you pray to if you were in the Amazon rainforest? If you were in Antarctica and you only had your family, what would you do? So regardless of the stance of which you stand upon, once you leave your community and go out and see people, your perspective starts to change. And I hope that, that as an office and as people come from different places, Cincinnati is a very insular environment. But the one thing that we can do is be proactive with trying to break down that wall and create outreach to receive more people so that we can grow this place.
You talk about your Montessori education.
Oh, yes.
And
What was her name? Mrs. Fonseca.
So Mrs. Fonseca.
Yeah, she was great. Mrs.
and
Weintraub.
Talk about the sort of the creativity of being in the National Football League. You obviously have your hand in a lot of things, from the Galloping Pig to
TheGallopingPig.com, yeah.
Sorry. I'm trying to plug back.
Dungbeetle.org,
Yes,
yep.
all those things. I'm interested in your creative process.
Oh.
And if you can talk a little bit, like, I don't know, in 2 minutes on that, and or how you collaborate, what that looks like.
My creative process. I would boil it down to identify and align and work with those that have experienced that of what you're trying to create. I think none too often we think we know what works for others, but we don't spend enough time with others to really identify and understand if it works for them. The stale air of the office environment oftentimes begins this repetitious cycle where we can't start to think outside the box, and we put unconscious walls up around one another. And so sometimes it's important to sort of share information instead of being selfish with retaining it. And to work with others that might be across the street or across the country in order to kind of come up with the best and brightest idea versus something that you think that is going to work versus that of which you know is going to work. I think that's the arena of which we play in. I don't know if many of you know, but I have a creative agency in OTR. Someone said OTR when they said the wall. There's no walls in OTR. Who said that? Huh?
It was about bricks.
Oh, okay. That was you. Okay, just make sure. Oh, who was that? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Deflect. Yeah. Okay. Got you. But I think that's the way we think about it from our agency perspective. Is about we kind of come from the cross-cultural consumer, the essence of the globalization of the world. And I don't know if many of you saw that National Geographic article talked about the faces of the world. That's probably one of the most powerful things ever. We will not know who or what we are in probably the next 20 years. You're going to look at someone and be like, what? So confused. Like, where are you from? oh my gosh, I don't remember thinking about this when I was in 3rd grade, asking people where they were from. I knew they were from Potomac. I knew they were from Maryland, you know? I wasn't looking at them saying, well, I think you might be part Sri Lankan and Tanzanian, right? So I think that when we bake that into our overall process, it's about what does the global perspective look like? But what do the people who we work with or who we're working for or who we're working to target think like? One of the projects that we worked on was actually the Livestrong. We work with Livestrong in terms of their rebranding. And one of the things that we did when we worked with Livestrong was that we created our project with only people that had cancer. Right? I don't know if many of you know a company called BLDG. Many of you know a guy named Mike Amon. And so Mike Amon worked with us on our project. And I know many of you who know Mike Amon also knew that Mike Amon unfortunately passed. But while Mike Amon was fighting through cancer, he was working with us because he believed it was his purpose to allow that message and the power of Livestrong to continue on, regardless of what had happened with someone that had been associated with it, and regardless of what people thought about him. It's more importantly the power of that organization and the power of the outreach, the power of the collective purpose of those people. And so Mike was a magnificent man through tireless hours of chemo treatment and still coming to work with us every day because of the fact that he knew that that was his purpose. Even though he just had a child, had a family, he wanted to make sure that his story was continuing to be told through Livestrong. So when you kind of think about how do you collaborate, how do you work across boundaries, and how do you find ways to facilitate discussion, go out, find the most uncomfortable environment, but most importantly, find the people. That's the most important things. Knock down those walls that are behind your eyelids. Find people, find space, find freedom.
Question. If you see someone who's just so obviously lacking purpose in their lives, and they're in that spinning out of control mode, maybe a friend, how do you get them, to see the purpose like you see it? Is there an example?
So I'll make a joke and I'll be serious. Get them up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start working out, because it's a pain in the ass. But I'll tell you what, when you start getting up, when you start getting your endorphins going, and you start getting your body back, you start getting your mind back, you start getting your energy back, it'll start to fall into place quite quickly, and you'll start to be supported by others and rallied with supporters. I think that's one of the most important things to do. But what was the next question?
If you have a friend, you just see someone who you
Yeah.
can tell that they're just completely lacking in purpose, that their life's kind of a mess.
What do I do?
I'm just
Yeah.
curious, like,
Well,
how do you counter that?
yeah, I think the other thing that you have to do is, the same question that she asked in the back when, part of those that have lost spouses. That's another grieving point in your life where you're kind of bottomless and you're trying to find your way out, right? I think same response. You got to spend time. You got to spend time. You have to be able to listen. You have to be open. You have to be able to see it from their perspective. I think a lot of times we're always trying to be, what do most women say that men are? We're always trying to find, we're trying to be solution-oriented. We're trying to fix stuff, right? We're trying to fix stuff. Can't always fix it, but you can listen. And together you might happen upon a solution, but you can't necessarily propose like this is the way that you're supposed to recover. And this is the way that you're supposed to stop spinning in order to be more directionally focused. It's about spending time, it's about listening, and it's about understanding. And I think if you do those three things, along with waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working out together, they'll find their way out of their spin cycle. But sometimes it's the spin cycle that allows you to finally spot their purpose, pun intended, for those ballerinas and dancers out there. Everybody got that, right? No? No one got that? I hope someone got that. No dancers out here? Come on, that was great. Yes?
You spoke of your purpose in the NFL. In what ways do you feel you were successful in fulfilling it, and do you think you've had a long-lasting effect on the NFL in that purpose?
Well, there's a lot of guys wearing bow ties now. You see the draft? So I think I definitely fulfilled that. I'm not saying that I was one of the first, but does anybody Eagles fans? Remember when Freddie Mitchell? He wore one of our bow ties on TV. He said, "I like to thank my hands." He never played any football after that, but that was one of our first national televised times when our bow ties were on the air. Aside from a couple other times now, but Ken Rosenthal was a big supporter, and then Ernie Johnson, he just wore it at the desk during the Miami Heat and the Nets game, and it actually crashed our site, which was pretty cool. Because we're used to like 50 people, coming through, and then all of a sudden it was like, bam, 15,000. So, and looking at the league, I think that there has been, and I will, without question, say that I don't think it was me. I think I always looked at, what did Michael Strahan do? Okay, and I'm sure Michael Strahan and I, looked at, like a guy like Paul Robeson. What did he do? And I think that players alike will look towards the one that started to break down that next barrier and the next barrier in order to kind of open up dialogue and open up a conversation. Because the game of football is slower than the city of Cincinnati. Right? And I say that because the game of football is actually way back to the 40s and to the 50s. And now we're just starting to kind of creep into the 70s, right? Free love, right? And I think that the game is starting to evolve and understand, which is a beautiful thing. And I don't think it was me. I think it was many who started to open up and have dialogue. You have a guy like Richard Sherman who doesn't shut up, who's a good friend of mine. And he writes some of the most powerful articles out there. But you know what he does? He tells the truth. A guy like Michael Sam that was so strong to come out. There's a lot of people in this game that have never been a part of such a strong reimagined NFL. And even though that people have kind of crossed that threshold, there are still those that unfortunately have a negative attitude that we may not change, but you know what? They'll phase out real quick. Because that island that I talked about before that I stood on, everybody's going to that island. I'm not saying that I'm the one that created it, but I found it, so everybody else is going to find it too, and they found out that it's a much more beautiful place. So I think that's the signature of the team, because I definitely don't think it's my signature alone, if you will.
How do you deal with self-doubt? Like that nagging, like as
Oh,
artists?
it's a pain. It's the same thing I get on the rowing machine too. I have a conversation with it, to be honest. So I wrote a book too, another shameless plug. It's called The Sportsman. And one of the chapters, it talks about the conference table in my brain. I don't know, maybe I'm just paranoid schizophrenic or something like that. But I always talk about the people that have dialogue at the conference table in my head. I don't think we just are just one person. We just kind of have this collective discussion, right? You know, because there's someone that's definitely up there in your brain that's like having a couple drinks at like 10 o'clock in the morning. But then there's definitely like the professor good at two shoes that's saying, I don't know why you're drinking that, you know? And then you got the meathead sitting there like, you know, we just need to go work out, you know? So there's all these different people that are up there. The analytics, like, oh, well, if, you know, if we go out and we work here, we can actually make this, you know, there's all these different people. So the self-doubt sometimes comes to the boardroom table. And I think it's a rally cry of the strongest or the leader on that board to kick them out. Sometimes they will take over. But, you know, going back to what I talked about before in terms of Cincinnati, in terms of relationships, in terms of the closest of people, and even he asked me the question about people that are spinning, and she asked me the question about people that are grieving. It's about having conversations with people that care about you and understand, and that help you align with your purpose, which would therefore lessen the occurrence of self-doubt. But the community of people are the ones that kind of create that rock on which you stand. Answer your question? So self-doubt, yeah. I can't say it's on camera, but you know, I just. Yeah.
Do you have any daily rituals?
Daily rituals. Well, I wake up at 5 in the morning. I didn't originally do that because I'm a night owl. But there's a couple people that I've met, and you know, coincidentally, I don't know if someone's tracking me on my computer, but there's always these articles that come up about CEOs that wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe just because I always click on it and read about it, but I never do anything about it. But that's one of my rituals that I do. Wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm at the gym by like 5:15, 5:30, you know, and then I'm back home and have my coffee. And actually, you know what I do? I rinse my mouth with coconut oil.
Pulling?
Yeah, oil pulling is great, right? It's amazing. That's in part joke, but yeah, actually pretty true. It's kind of nasty at first, you know, because you gotta like bite on this coconut oil, and then it gets like liquefied, and it's like, ooh. Then your face starts to squeeze. It's really strange. But that's one of my my rituals. Another ritual, recent rituals, because I have a lot of strange rituals, and I don't really want to. Like, if after I brush my teeth and I walk out of the bathroom door, I close the door, but I stop it only 3 inches away. Maybe that's like obsessive compulsive. But I definitely do that. I've been doing it since I was like, 5 years old. For some reason, it's that 3 inches of the door that just makes me feel that much more comfortable. It was really weird when I was in high school too, because I was like, the door, if it was like that far, I was like, no, the boogeyman is definitely in there. That is like, okay. So that's one of my rituals. And I think another one of my rituals is that I like to laugh, So I watch a lot of Big Bang Theory. It's a great TV show, but I like to laugh. So it's about waking up in the morning, consuming as much information as possible, and having as many conversations in all seriousness. I think it's about getting up and being aware. Montessori education teaches us to consume as much information as possible. And I'll tell you, and I quote, the one thing that I hate when people say that I don't know. Never before we had so much technology at our fingertips, but people still always say, I don't know. And I think that's just, that's horrific when we can know so much so quickly all the time. But a lot of times, maybe people are overwhelmed because it's too much. But consume some of it or all of it, because I think it's important. And have conversations with people, because I think all too often, we might, per the Ginsburg effect. Ginsburg from Mad Men, he went crazy because of the computer. That's because he didn't have enough social interaction. So creepy, right? But I think it's about human interaction, and that communication, that conversation can be facilitated by a name tag that says, what's the biggest misconception about you? or it's about a bow tie that you wear, which is this is the Cincinnati flag bow tie, or someone that you're supporting, or something that you're going through. Being open and honest with people, because I think that's going to be the hardest thing in the future. Human interaction. Yeah, human interaction. Like, give someone a hug and actually hold on to them and see how long it takes for them to try to wiggle out. Serious. Hug someone for 30 seconds and see if you start sweating. I'm telling you. But after a while, it gets comfortable, and then you start to really feel it. There was someone, yeah. Oh, man, it's 10:10? Oh, my mama's going to kill me. All right, one more question. Yeah.
Before you moved to Cincinnati, what were your preconceived notions or thoughts of the city? And then if it's changed since then, what made it change?
My preconceived notion about Cincinnati? WKRP, that's it. I swear, that's it. It was like some train tracks in the opening of the show. It was like train track stuff. That's all I mean, I didn't know anything about Cincinnati. But then, my first year, I'm traveling up and down Vine Street, and I start looking around. I'm like, whoa, what's that bank doing there? What's that company doing there? Who's that over there? What's that over there? And then you start looking around and we have 2 stadiums right next to each other? I mean, that's pretty serious. And then you start going and seeing different art museums and going to different events and meeting amazing people and walking down the street, and people actually say hello. They actually want to know how you're doing, and then you see the banks pop up out of nowhere and OTR get cleaned up like that. I don't even think Possible was here. When did Possible move in?
It was Bridge.
Huh?
It was Bridge before it was Possible.
What was the Bridge Worldwide? Oh, that's right. Yeah. I mean, like, boom, everything starts to show up. That's the amazing thing about being here. And that's only happened in 7 years. 7 years. 7 years. And we have a Toby Keith's downtown. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me or what? No, seriously, once again, I appreciate everybody. And thank you for spending time, and thank you for listening. And all right, everybody stand up. Give someone a hug. Oh, hold on. Wait, hold on to them. Hold on to them. 30 seconds. Hey, hold on. I'll tell you when to break. No, that wasn't a real hug. That was not a real hug. That was an arm hug. Give her a real hug. No. Come on. There it is. There you go. All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
My mom's really going to kill me.